Great. How'd you guys like the film? Oh, wow, here we go. That's your welcome. Yeah, you did. I'm going to introduce you guys, but welcome, everybody. This is Elijah Bynum, the writer and director. And this is Tom Costantino. He is the co-producer and editor, one of the editors of the movie. Your audience.
They look great.
First of all, congratulations on the film. This is really, really amazing. I don't know if you guys understand, but this is his directorial debut. He wrote and directed this, and this is his first feature. So that's pretty amazing. I think we should give it up for him for that.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
So one of the things that that some of the folks knew about was the Blacklist, that this is how this project sort of got noticed. But can you walk me through the origination of the story idea and then how you got it onto the Blacklist and then how you got noticed?
Yeah, sure. The idea started actually from two kids I knew back when I was in college who were up to no good, more or less. And they started selling a little bit of weed around one of the dorms at UMass. Who said ooh? Yeah. When it led to 2 dorms, and then it was 5 dorms, and then the whole campus was getting it from them, and then the campus down the road. And I came from a place that has a number of colleges in the area, so there was like quite the clientele if you were in the pot selling business. And so that happened, and there was kind of this unorthodox friendship between the two because their personalities were very different, kind of like Hunter and Daniel. But they became fast friends as their business took off. And then, of course, as these things do, it started to spiral out of control, and they started getting paranoid, and they stopped trusting one another, and one thing led to the next, and their friendship and their business kind of came crashing down at the same time, and ended quite dramatically, not quite in the same fashion that this did, but one of the kids came home one night, and there was someone waiting for him in his garage with a gun, and he fled. He dropped out of school and fled, and then his partner got word that they were under siege, and he fled, and no one knows what happened to either one of them. And that was in 2007 or 2008. Wow. So there was something really interesting about that, and so that's where the story started. As far as the Blacklist, I had just signed with a new agent and manager, and they were just sending the script to everyone that they could, and people liked it.
Describe what the Blacklist is for anybody that might not know.
Yeah, it's a list that's produced every year by executives and managers, and actually I don't think managers vote. I think it's just executives and producers in Hollywood get a vote for their favorite scripts of the year. I think you get your top 10. They list their top 10 and they tally everyone's votes, and then they put out this list at the end of the year of the best unproduced screenplays of that year.
And that year was 2015?
2013.
So that year he had 2 scripts on this elite Blacklist, which is pretty incredible. Congratulations on that too. Done some research.
Yeah, apparently you have. So
once you're on the Blacklist, and then how does it develop from there? I mean, you're thinking. I mean, I'm sure there's some people who are writers here as well. You're like, I'm on the Blacklist. I mean, I've made it. Like, but what happens next from that point?
Well,
does your phone ring right away?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I'm making the Blacklist is great because all of a sudden you're kind of in this fraternity of names that otherwise you wouldn't have been in. It's great at breaking new writers and people becoming familiar with your work, so that was very helpful. But there's a lot of great Blacklist scripts every year that never go past the Blacklist because they're usually independent films, they're usually like mid-range budgets, and the subject matter are usually things that studios aren't making as much nowadays. So a lot of them are just really great writing samples and really fun reads, but that's where they stop. We were fortunate enough that the script bounced around town and it landed at Imperative Entertainment, who stepped up to the plate and decided to take a chance on me and the movie, and that's how it got made.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Tom, as one of the editors and co-producers of this thing, how did you get involved with the project?
Well, it's sort of it's not really a sordid story, but I actually didn't start on the project. There was another editor who I have actually never met, but
2 other editors.
2 other editors. All right, we're trying to keep it. Yeah, there were 2 other editors, but long story short, I was working on a project with one of the. I don't know if he's a principal, but he was a showrunner of mine. His name's Tim Kring. He was working on Heroes, and he was working with that handsome gent back there who has laryngitis. Producer Ryan Friedkin in the corner, the other man, the myth, the legend, the other moral support. But Tim talked to Ryan. Ryan hooked us up. We had a long conversation on a Saturday. It was like an hour and a half, right?
was, yeah.
And the two of them had some feelings about the film. I mean, it was all the performances were there, and it was just sort of this wonderful journey. But there were some things that they felt could be changed, and
it was longer at that point.
It was
right?
longer.
It was like 2:45.
Yeah, it was like 2:45. There may have been more deaths in the film that did not actually happen in the final film, and we all just sort of hit it off. And they had these ideas. I had the same ideas, and they were like, "Can you do that? Can you fix that?" And I was like, "We'll get there." And then, 15 months later,
wow. So 15 months is the post.
Yeah, well, it's
when you came on board.
I thought you weren't going to share our secret.
I know. That was the only secret I was going to share. No, it was, and thanks to Imperative and to Ryan, all this is that we, unlike some things, we got to keep going back in and just working the performances and working the stuff, and this man's tireless dedication, and just got to really spend some time with it and push the material at a place that it probably wouldn't have if we were with any other company. So.
But no, I mean, I think that, like you were talking about, the 15 months. I mean, I think it's inspirational because when the going gets tough, so many times people just give up on projects or they shelve them or the energy runs dry. So I think it's actually inspirational that you did keep going and you did push through. So yeah, congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. It wasn't just me. I mean, it was Tom. It was the producers and financiers. It was everyone involved in the post process. Just felt like you could watch the movie and it was very close. It always felt like it was very close, but there were just like a few areas that needed to be tweaked. And yeah, it was not something that we figured like we had gotten everything out of it we were going to and we should just walk away.
Yeah.
It felt like if we just put our heads down and kept working, we were going to crack it.
This movie seems to be a little bit about, or a lot about fate and some of the choices that you make and those fated decisions.
You're actually the first person who's picked up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I mean, sometimes you start a ball rolling down the hill and it can't stop. And I just wonder, in a positive way, do you feel that this is fated for you? Did you feel a sense along the way of like, in a good way, that this is fated? Because, I mean, you're kind of a shining star right now for people who are like us. We're growing and trying to go up to the top, and you snapped through.
Yeah, sure. I think if you sit here and you look back at all the things that had to happen, for this movie to get made, it is somewhat of a miracle. And there were a lot of things that fell our way. So certainly, when you're in the grind of things and you're frustrated and things aren't going your way, it certainly doesn't feel like fate is carrying you through it. But like once it's done and you look back at everything that you were able to do, and then how lucky you were to get to make it. Yeah, certainly, yeah.
So, nostalgia. This whole movie is about nostalgia in a way too. I feel like you're setting it in 1991 as a period piece in a way, but you have tons of like throwbacks to the 50s and 60s and 70s. There's all this music that you guys have put in that it brings out a bit of nostalgia, whether I think you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s or 60s. And how intentional was that? And how do you feel about nostalgia in general with
I'm
film?
a sucker for nostalgia, for sure. American, kind of like classic American nostalgia too. And yeah, it was hard because there was a decision we had to make at the beginning of the film. Like, are we going to root this thing heavily in 1991 and make sure everything and every piece of music is rooted in 1991? And I don't know, a few things changed us from that course. One of them is just the music from that period is quite limited. There's not,
Nirvana, Pearl Jam.
Well, that was 92.
Oh,
so we had missed it, right?
Okay.
So there was like, it was like, what's her name? Paula Abdul.
Oh, yeah.
Like Color Me Bad, which is, that's groovy and everything,
Yeah.
but it just wasn't fitting what we were trying to do here.
Were you alive in 91?
Just barely.
Sorry, was that rude? I'm just wondering.
So that was part of it. And another thing was the movie's like, the whole thing is kind of it's folklore, and it's kind of small town legend. So it's like everything you kind of take with a grain of salt. So I think that opened us up to having some kind of artistic liability, or artistic liberty, not to like hammer home the fact that this is 1991, but mostly just be worried about immersing you in kind of the mood and the emotion of like some kind of a bygone time in American history.
What about, Tom, that first 15 minutes of this movie where it feels like Wes Anderson, it feels like you're really jumping into a story, a once upon a time story. How did that really set the stage, and how did you get into that with the, let's say the first like 15 minutes, act one of the movie?
Well, I think, the thing about I really have to say it's all in the writing. I'm sorry. No, usually, as we go on, some of the scenes that once we get out of the first 15-minute montage, that's when the actors get to have their sort of moments in their performance, and that's a whole nother part of the film. But it's really just setting the scene, pretty much pouring through every single song that Elijah or I or Ryan or even Alexandra, my wife who's sitting there, my patient wife, thinking of, sort of trying to find the tonal balance to put this in, and just sort of allowing the moments to play while still basically driving a narrative and sort of just setting this. It's basically just a giant scene setter, and then I think that allows you to sort of be invested in the characters and take you into the film for a while. So.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest challenge in the edit room, was finding the tone. And when I wrote it, I understood that this movie was going to start kind of in one area, and by the end, it's tonally
it's
very
dark. Yeah.
Yeah, and like if you don't make that work, you're going to lose everyone. And you guys are still here, so.
Actually, they are. Yeah, nobody left.
A few people, but. All
right.
Are you from Boston? Absolutely. There we go.
Nice. There you go. No, it becomes a tragedy. I mean, there's really like some Shakespearean tragedy in the end of like, oh God, everybody's gonna die. Everyone's dead. Everyone's dead.
Yeah, it was, and it was supposed to be that way, but it works easier on the page, as most things do. And then when you see it up on the screen, and there's real human beings, delivering this dialogue.
That was one of the things that we connected on, is that it did work on the page, but there's sort of a tonal range that the film had to work in, and all of us getting together and sort of identifying that is way out there in space, and that's not going to work, but it's integral to the story. So how the hell are we going to, bring that piece out, yet still keep the narrative going and still keep everybody's journey going? So that was the trick. And then the stuff that was sort of, low-hanging fruit, like fun, like there were songs that were easy that we could have probably had and paid for, but we didn't use because it was obvious and sort of brought a different tonal thing to the scene. So there's a lot of that.
There's a room full of actors mostly here. So what advice do you have?
Crowd,
so good looking.
Yeah, really.
So diverse. I love it. Tell me a little bit about what advice you could give to actors that maybe when you were casting this film that you either noticed. I mean, is this your first time really casting a film too, or did you do? Yeah. So what did you notice when you were dealing with actors that advice you could give?
Well, honestly, the actors, that's where when I felt like I came up against a problem and I felt like a first-time director, and I was like, I'm fucked right now. I would look to the actors for some kind of advice, because they were like really good actors, or they have such great creative ideas of their own. So if a scene's not working, you go to them and we can all agree this isn't working. What do you guys think? So I would say for actors, have opinions, have opinions of your own. Because
it's usually not a problem for actors.
I'm sure it's not too much of a problem, but your opinions are usually really good, and directors look to you more than you might think they would. So there's that. As far as I think it's important, the trust factor between a director and an actor. So, I mean, if you trust your director, it's going to be a lot easier for your director to trust you, and that's when the best work is going to come through.
What about in the editing room? What can the actors do to make your job easier once you get to the editing room?
Well, I try not to get too heady about this stuff because that's not my style, but there are a couple of things, and especially in this film, is that if you actually shut off the dialogue and you can play the music if you want to shut off the dialogue, the movie's all about what people are doing with their eyes. And Alex Rowe is really strong with that. Mike is strong with that. Emery, you could actually block out the whole screen and just watch where he's watching. I mean, and Timothy too. So that I would say that is knowing that this is the most powerful tool. Like, people want to spend money. I mean, I do a lot of television, expensive, stupid television, and they want to spend money on special effects and all these things, and everybody's worried about their crane shots. Nothing personal directors, and really all what you're paying for is this, and this will guide you through. And this is one of those films that does that. And the other thing is, I would say, a bad choice or a choice is better than no choice, because no choice, you are just lost. I'd rather have 7 takes of something that's off the reservation, and then we can call it into something, than someone who's just going with the flow and not really making any deliberate decisions about their character.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there a moment though when you were like, "Oh my God, I'm in over my head. I'm on this set. Something's broken. They're looking to me for answers. Oh God, what do I
Like
do?"
every 15 minutes, yeah.
Right.
But yeah, again, having a good team around you,
Good
having a
producers.
good editor, good producers, good crew, good actors, you kind of just fight your way through it. And I think you never know if you've made a good movie until you've cut it together. Because things that you thought were complete pieces of crap on the day that you shot it somehow come together in the edit room. And then things you left feeling pretty confident about, you sit in the edit room a few months later and it won't work.
Yeah.
So there's pretty much, it feels like swinging in the dark a little bit. So yeah, I mean, and I've heard directors much more experienced than myself and much more accomplished than myself say the same thing, where it's, you never quite know. Going into the movie and then coming out of it, you never quite know what you got until it's done.
What about when you're sitting there? Like, so this film premiered at South by Southwest this year. What, you're sitting there in the audience watching your film for the first time with a big audience. Like, what was that like for you, and how did that feel?
I blacked out, so I don't. Yeah, I don't remember much of it. No,
I had 3 glasses of wine and just was praying for my own death, but that was good.
yeah, it was. No, it was great. I mean, our premiere night, we played in front of like I think it was 1,100 or 1,200 people. And we got they were
they loved it.
It was the best audience you could have because they were with the movie the entire time, and every time they were supposed to laugh, they did, and every time they were supposed to like, ooh or ah, they did, and then at the end there was this big standing ovation, and yeah, it was great.
How did you get? This is a question from can't read that name. It's from one of you wonderful actors out there. How did you get the names and budget you got for your first project? Yeah. Oh, there he is. What's your name? Pete? Yeah. Yes, Prion. Hi, thanks, Prion. How did you get the names and budget for this movie? I mean, this is not a cheap thing. I mean, it looks absolutely gorgeous. By the way, the cinematography is absolutely phenomenal on it. Congratulations on that too.
Thank you. That's the Argentinian madman. He couldn't make it tonight because he's in Argentina, but he shot the hell out of it. He did a great job. Yeah. What was it? Names and budget?
Well, like how did you get the names and budget to do a movie? I mean, so you've had it on the Blacklist. You're getting the phone calls. You know, we're interested, and we've got a producer on board. But now someone's got to pay for this. You know.
Well, the producer is a production finance company, so it was a one-stop shop. And I went in and I met with them, and we talked about the movie, and they were big fans of the script. And I don't even know if I didn't go in officially about the movie. It was more of a general meeting, just meeting at the company. And then by the end of the meeting, they were like, "What do you think about directing it?" Yeah.
Were you expecting that? Like, that is unbelievable.
No, I'm making it sound a lot easier than it was. I mean, there was like 3 years of depression before that. But
fair enough.
By that meeting, it happened like that. And yeah, they were going to finance the entire thing. And it was a big risk for them. I had never directed anything before, like not a short film or a music video or commercial or anything. So they took a huge leap of faith on me. And then, you know, we still got a great budget for it, but it was smaller than, we had a few line producers come in and run a budget, and it was bigger than what we ended up going with. So we had to, you know, make some sacrifices and cram some things down, for sure. And then as far as the names go, I don't know. I don't think there are that too many, like, not to toot my own horn, but there are not too many really interesting roles for young actors out there. So I think when the agents got a hold of the script, their clients kind of jumped for it. And the casting process was probably the easiest process of the whole movie. Nothing else was easy, but the casting was. And we got our first choice in just about everyone. And yeah, they liked the script, and we met with them, and they were on the same page as I was, and that was that.
So is the man back there the one that greenlit you? Is Rick the one?
Ryan. Yeah.
Ryan? Oh, there he is. Oh, I see back there. They're pointing fingers. Yeah. Well, thank you for greenlighting him, because this was an awesome project. Is there anything that like inspires you as a filmmaker that like either, oh, this movie really inspired me, or this filmmaker really inspires me? I mean, I mentioned Wes Anderson. I read somewhere that Stand By Me was a movie that inspired you. Just on like a personal level, like tell me a little bit about that for you.
Yeah, there were a lot. I mean, there were tons. Stand By Me was certainly an influence. I saw it when I was about the age of the kids that are in the movie. And again, it took place, I think, the movie came out in the 80s, but it took place in 1959, I think. And it touched into that kind of timeless American nostalgia for sure, which influenced me while writing this script, movies like The Sandlot, and I think Goodfellas was another one we talked about a lot.
We had some more obscure ones in there too. Ryan, what we were going pretty deep. What was some of the
Last Picture Show was another one. So yeah, there were a number of influences for this movie. As far as filmmaking in general, there are a lot of filmmakers that are really exciting. From Martin Scorsese to the Coen brothers, Quentin Tarantino. Big fan of Lars von Trier and Nick Refn. I think anytime you see a really good movie, it inspires you to go make a really good movie.
Yeah.
I know I'm seeing Dunkirk tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about that. Yeah. And I'm sure I'll come out of that and I'll be all fired up and raring to go again.
So when you were growing up, you were writing already, or like were you writing in college? You did not go to film school, right?
No, I didn't.
Did not go to film school. Just saying. This is just, anybody can do this in a way. It's just amazing. Anyway, didn't go to film school.
Yeah, no, didn't go to, when I was much younger, like preschool, kindergarten, I was really into writing stories, and I would dictate to my mom comic books, and she would write down the dialogue and draw the pictures. And then my dad brought home a camera one day, and he taught me, if you turn the camera upside down and someone crawls on the ground, it looks like they're crawling on the ceiling. And I remember that being really cool. But then, for 15 years there, I just kind of became a jock. I played sports. All my friends were playing sports, and so the filmmaking and storytelling hobbies kind of took a back seat all the way through college. And then my senior year of college, I stopped playing football and kind of got in touch with that side of myself again, and which led me out here. And yeah, but there was a big gap, in my formative years where I wasn't actually writing. I wish I was, but I wasn't.
Tom, you've been editing forever. You were doing 48 hours.
I was doing 48 hours. I did. Well,
CBS.
Intervention.
That's why I hired you, actually.
You're kidding. Intervention?
It's a great show.
Oh, well, thank you. No, I started.
It is.
I did go to film school, and it didn't really. It's strange that the film school part didn't teach me much, but there was a TV station, and then there was like editing rooms. So I sort of did my own projects there, and I actually had a sort of a circuitous course. I started in advertising. I went to I was in New York up until about 6 years ago. So did that. Worked on the BBC's OJ trial.
Nice.
And so timely.
Yes,
really timely.
Yeah.
But slowly made my way into, and then I was in news, and then slowly made my way out here. But but I do feel like those disciplines are incredibly helpful because I can sort of draw on some things that I wouldn't have had if I just stayed in strict narrative. So I'm sort of glad I had that.
You're working with Seth MacFarlane now on his new space show. You're editing that.
I am doing is a 180 from this lovely, quiet film of acting, and it's
Orville.
Yes, yeah. I'm working on the Orville, but that too. It's interesting. He also looks to actors, but his where Elijah's comes from the heart and emotion, which is sort of my school of things. His is all about diction and rhythm, but he also wants the actors to make choices and have a sort of he has sort of a visual patterning, an audio patterning that in the same way that this has a visual sort of emotional patterning. So, every project has that kind of thing going on. So.
And what about you? What are you working on next? I mean, and where are you headed now? Because there has to be some good buzz about you right now.
There's a script that I just recently finished, which is with the same company that did this, and it's in the very early stages, but we're getting that up and off the ground, and we'll see. But that's
Has Tom read it yet?
That's a good question.
I have not read it yet.
That's a good question.
I was also supposed to still be at work till 3 a.m, so I am going to read it. But you know what? I don't care. Actually, I don't, it is what it is. It's whatever. Whenever they're ready to start going, I'll just quit and just start editing. So it sort of doesn't matter because I'll follow this guy into the breach. So, and Ryan too. So.
Is there someone that you really want to work with next, or that you're not even necessarily next, but like who do you really want to work with that you're like excited now that the doors are opening?
Actor-wise?
Any actor or any producer-wise, anyone?
Yeah, no, there are tons of great actors I'd love to work with. This script, the next script I wrote, is an ensemble piece, so it gives us the opportunity to cast a bunch of people. You know, we're not just casting a lead, but there are some great roles in there. I'm not supposed to say too much about it, but there's a role for someone that I would love to. Does anyone here know Jesse Plemons? I love him. I think he's the man, and I wrote this role specifically for him. And so he's at the top of the list. I'd love to give it to him and see what he thinks.
Maybe watching. This is on the internet, so you never know.
Jesse, if you're out there. Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much everything. There was one other question on there about how you deal with actors and just what your approach is with that, and then we'll wrap it up with that. When you actually have a moment on set and you need to talk to that actor, how do you approach that, and how do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, like I don't want it to get lost on you guys that I think you guys have the hardest role on the film set. We get to hide behind the camera. He doesn't. He gets to hide in a dark room somewhere. You guys have to be up there, and everyone's looking at you and judging you, and you know, it's a really tough job to act, to even try to act, and it's even harder to be good at acting. So there's a lot of respect coming from, you know, just knowing what you guys are going through. And also, like Tom was saying earlier, with all the expensive gadgets and the lights and the cameras and the cranes and all of that, an actor is a director's best tool, because without an actor, no one really cares what's going on. So it's like trying to understand how important they are and how hard their job is, for one. And then, you know, it's a case-by-case basis. I think every actor needs something a little different. Some people want a lot of feedback and a lot of criticism, and each take you're going to them and you're giving them a little note, and they want to talk to you. And sometimes even in pre-production, there's weeks or months of talking about the character, and that works for some people. Other actors, it's like, leave me the fuck alone and let me do my thing, and that's cool too.
Usually pretty good.
That's cool too. And it's just feeling out what the actor wants and what the actor needs from me as a director, and trying to be sensitive to that and trying to be open to that, and give them what they need. But it's definitely like a dance between the two of you. In the first week or so of shooting, there's a lot of getting to know each other if you've never worked with each other before.
Did you have rehearsals for this?
We didn't actually.
Wow.
No, we just showed up and started shooting, and yeah, I did a few more takes than Clint does, but.
How long did you shoot for?
It was 29 days in Atlanta, and then we did a reshoot up here in LA, or additional photography up here in LA.
Awesome. And what did you shoot on? That is the last question. What camera did you shoot on?
On the Alexa.
Okay, awesome. I really have to say, like, once again, your story is something that I know a lot of actors, we're writers, we're trying to create content as our own. And what you've done, I mean, I don't know if I just speak for myself, but I'm actually really impressed, and I'm amazed with what you've done. And you really do deserve a round of applause for your guts. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys as much.
Thanks.
Thank you all very much.